15 wins in a National Football League regular season is insanely hard to do. It's been doable since the 1978 season, when the NFL went from 14 to 16 regular season games, and only 7 of the 32 franchises can say they've done it, and never twice. Each team that's accomplished this is worthy of their own documentary, and some already have one. So why do you want to win that many games in the first place? Well, there have never been 2 teams with 15 wins in the same regular season, so you'd be the top seed, which means you get a bye week and skip a week in the playoffs altogether. You also always face the lowest ranked remaining seed, so in theory, you get a bit of rest and have the easiest path to the Super Bowl. So a team that dominated the regular season with the easiest playoff schedule in their conference should lead to Super Bowl success. And it did. In 1984, the San Francisco 49ers became the first team to win 15 games before the playoffs started, and cruised through them with an average margin of victory of over 18 points. Their only loss came at home against the Steelers due to Pittsburgh's clock control, some iffy ref calls, 2 field goal opportunities that came up empty, a late interception, and a game winner from Steelers kicker Gary Anderson. To this day, of all NFL teams to win at least 15 games in the regular season, the 84 49ers are the only team to lose a regular season game at home. A team that dominant and so destined for a Lombardi trophy must be a once-in-a-decade type team. Well, I guess the Chicago Bears wanted to make up for lost time because the very next season, they also went 15-1 and earned an uncontested Super Bowl ring. The history of 15-win teams was off to a perfect start, but then something happened. That fruitful figure became rotten with time. You know that 85 Bears team? They're the last 15-win team to lift a Lombardi. And it's not because there haven't been any other 15-game winners. 5 teams have accomplished this feat since, and for one reason or another, stopped winning at the wrong time. The 98 Vikings are the only 15-game winner from the 90s. They leaned heavily on their then record-setting offense, suffering their only loss in Tampa Bay due to the Vikings' defense not getting a sack or pick, and the perfect Buccaneer duo of Warrick Dunn and Mike Alstott both going over 100 yards with a score. If you can believe it, there was actually a bit of a quarterback controversy at the beginning of the season, as Randall Cunningham stepped in for an injured Brad Johnson and never really looked back. Well, after that early speed bump, it was full speed ahead, even in the playoffs, as they entered them with an 8-game winning streak and crushed a Cinderella Cardinals team. The Vikings would need just one more win to play in the Super Bowl, as a franchise that has never won it all. Remember how I said the highest seed has the easiest schedule? Well, sometimes those other high seeds keep winning, and it's your job as the highest seed to put them in their place. These are the 2-seeded Falcons, also playing for a shot at the Super Bowl, who have also never won it. This game is mainly remembered for one play, from a player already mentioned. Former Steeler, now Vikings kicker Gary Anderson had made every field goal and PAT, becoming the first NFL kicker to have a perfect season.
The guy just doesn't miss.
So that's a pretty good bet if you say, do you think Gary Anderson will make this field goal? The answer should probably be yes.
39 yards away, and it's not good.
At least in the regular season. Back in 1984, a kick wide left in the fourth quarter cost the 49ers a shot at perfection and made Gary Anderson's kick a game winner for Pittsburgh. He had helped prevent perfection before, and now in cruel, ironic fashion, done the same. But you know what? Gary Anderson always gets the blame for this loss after that miss, but he really shouldn't. Randall Cunningham fumbled in his own territory, which led to a Falcons TD at the end of the first half, and fumbled again in the fourth quarter, which only gave the Falcons more momentum. The defense on 2 separate occasions gave up double-digit leads, and remember, that missed kick wasn't during a tie game or anything. The Vikings still had a 7-point lead, and even after they blew that, there were still multiple chances and drives to win in overtime. The Vikings were still good in this game, but the problem is, in the playoffs, you play great teams, and good was not good enough that day. This next team is probably the most forgotten of these imperfect 5. The Steelers from 2004. Like the Vikings in '98, they had a quarterback change early in the season, as Steelers starter Tommy Maddox was injured in Week 2, which allowed rookie Ben Roethlisberger to step in. Roethlisberger would then win a rookie record 13 games in just 13 starts. This record has since been matched by Dallas quarterback Dak Prescott in 2016, but Dak needed 16 games to do it and didn't win a playoff game that year. The only other player I can think of to have a season like Ben's is the guy he took the record from, Dieter Brock. Brock, in his only season, started just 15 games for the 1985 Rams, going 11-4, including a win against the dynasty-destined 49ers in San Francisco on Monday Night Football. He got his team to the playoffs, won, and got the opportunity to face the... The 2004 Steelers easily have the worst offense of any team to win 15 games and were carried by their defense. That's typically how rookie QBs win. The perfect run from Roethlisberger ended at the hands of an insanely complete Patriots team who has a coach notorious for chewing up young signal callers. Hey, they had a good run. I wouldn't feel too bad for this team. The future looked bright and came fast, and now with a little bit more playoff seasoning, the Steelers would win the Super Bowl the following year. The 2007 Patriots technically make this video's title incorrect, as it should read Why You Shouldn't Win At Least 15 Games, as they are the only team to ever win 16 games in the regular season. A perfect season has happened before, but not one this long, or as dominant. This Patriots team set several NFL records, but I want to focus on one: point differential. Point differential is just the difference between how many points a team scored and how many they allowed. If a team wins a game 24-10, their point differential is plus 14. But if that team then goes and loses a game 6-27, their point differential is minus 21 for that game and minus 7 overall. Simple, right? In 2007, the New England Patriots had a record point differential of 315. This is easily the best mark of any team to play at least 16 regular season games. That mark is so high that it eclipses the total points scored of 11 teams that season, including a division winner. Their differential of points eclipses more than 1/3 of the league team's total points. Their games were not close. This runaway train of a team was famously derailed by the Giants in Super Bowl 42, thanks in large part due to arguably the greatest play in Super Bowl history, and arguably the greatest defensive game plan in Super Bowl history, from Giants defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo. But there were cracks forming before then. To win that 16th game, the Patriots had to overcome the largest deficit they faced all season, and only won by 3 points against a team that had nothing to play for. In the divisional round of the playoffs, it was tied through halftime despite playing at home. And in the AFC Championship, they held just a 2-point lead in the fourth quarter despite Chargers quarterback Phillip Rivers practically playing on one leg and defending league MVP LaDainian Tomlinson sidelined due to a knee injury. Brady also at the time had his second worst playoff game by passer rating. That'll happen when you throw 3 picks. The end result of Super Bowl 42 would have been unthinkable to most just before kickoff. But when you consider that there were now 18 games worth of film, the adjustments from the rest of the league, and the quality of opponents increasing, should it really have been that unbelievable? By now, you might be wondering why I use points allowed and scored and not total offense and defense, which uses yards. Well, I like to use points as a baseline. The score is ultimately what matters anyway. Okay, look. In 2011, the Packers defense allowed the most yards that season. But were they the worst? Heck no. That same season, the Buccaneers defense allowed 494 points, an average of over 30 per game, which at the time only 2 other teams with 16-game seasons had ever allowed more. The Packers were playing with such a lead most of the time that the offense on the other side was just in a constant 2-minute drill, and as long as the Packers defense gave up field goals instead of touchdowns, they did their job. Alright, what road team did they lose to? Kansas City. Why? Because Kyle Orton played a clean game and Tama Ali played out of his mind. Great! Now on to win or go home time. This team is a prime example of the rest versus rust debate. Because the Packers won 15 games, they earned a bye week in the playoffs, and because they were in a position to win 15 regular season games, it means the spot was locked up long ago. So going into this game, a chunk of players hadn't played in a while, mainly out of fear of unnecessary injury. See, that's another reason it's so hard to win 15 games, because more often than not, the backups have to win a game or two. Okay, so here we have the 2009 Indianapolis Colts, who enter into the game 14-1, playing the 5-10 Bills team, and there is not Peyton Manning throwing it to not Reggie Wayne, and there are the Colts not winning the game and not being part of the 15-win club. Do the Colts win if their starters play the full game? Probably. So the Green Bay backups have played and won, and because of this, quarterback Aaron Rodgers alone hadn't taken a snap in 3 weeks. So with all that time spent not playing, is it surprising that they came out flat against a white-hot New York Giants team who had to win out to extend their season? Now, it's not fair to blame every miscue on this, but do the Packers lose 3 fumbles, and what should have been a 4th, if they had played together the week prior? It's tough to say. But I don't think they turn it over 4 times. And with this loss, they become the only 15-win team to not win a single playoff game. If there is any team to break the 15-win curse, it's the 2015 Panthers. On the 30th anniversary of the last 15-game winner to win it all, it's as if they've studied from the 4 fallen before them. Let's start with that loss, in Atlanta. These Falcons were on a mission to be remembered. Going into Week 16, the Panthers were still without a loss, and had beaten these same birds to a pulp just 2 weeks ago, 38-0. The Falcons were not fueled by playoff aspirations. While still mathematically in it, they had practically been eliminated. They were fueled by another thing, though. Petty revenge. And it worked! But hey, that's a good thing for the Panthers. The loss was late in the season, a good reminder that they are mortal. They also don't have the pressure of perfection weighing on them for the playoffs. They played their starters in Week 17. They have a quarterback who's been in the postseason before, and he's been the guy the whole year and is the league's MVP. They have all pros at every level on offense and defense, and on top of that, it looks like they're getting stronger as they go deeper into the playoffs. They're in the Super Bowl, playing a team that has no Pro Bowlers on offense and just barely avoided overtime with Brady and Belichick. Go get 'em, Panthers. End it. What? How? What do you mean you scored the same number of touchdowns as the Broncos defense? How? The Broncos offense had a negative amount of expected points every game of the postseason, which is a nerdy stat, pretty much meaning that when the Broncos offense was on the field, they were hurting their chance to win. The Panthers getting here beat a team that was better in nearly every statistical category than the Broncos. I could talk about how Denver's combination of elite cornerbacks and pass rush overmatched a team with weak wide receivers playing from behind. There were other miscues as well, but that doesn't matter, because getting win number 15 is cursed. Here is the amount of wins every Super Bowl champion has won in the regular season since the Bears won Super Bowl 20. To answer your question, 2011 Giants. It makes sense, right? The Super Bowl winners typically win a lot of games, Why does this trend die at 15? We've even had matchups between 14-game winners. Oh. I see you're a 16-game purist and don't think the 17-game teams should count. Okay, fine. Have another one. You're so picky. So, who's going to be next? There are typically 2 every decade. We're due. And about that 17th game being introduced in 2021, what's that gonna mean? Should going 15-2 be dreaded, or is 16-1 the new mark? I don't know. But what I do know is, if you ever watch your great team drop a game or two that they should have won, I wouldn't be too concerned. You don't want to win that many anyway.